Hey guys, it's Jeselle again. How are you today? This is Motivational Minds Radio. This is the program where we get to take a closer look into the minds of the authors who put the magical words on the page. These books that we read, they give us pleasure, they keep us motivated, they keep us inspired, and they keep us prepared for the adventures that life throw at us each and every day. On today's program, we sure do have someone who is an adventurist by just sheer nature. His name is Alan Blair, and the name of his book is called Race to Win, The Missing Pieces. And let me tell you a bit about Alan. Alan is a race car driver, and he's been riding motorcycles since as early as he could ride a bike. He went on to participate in off-road racing venues as motocross and enduros and hare scrambles throughout his youth. He continued all of this into high school, and he prefers to ride a motorcycle to school, which is an interesting fact about Alan. And then eventually Alan became a successful motorcycle racing club owner and promoter. So basically, I just want to get right into the book because what we've got going on here is an amazing way for the young racers out there who are just starting out, how they can learn all of the tools and essential techniques, all of the things that could be missing, as the book says, to give them complete success in their racing game. Alan, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jeselle. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. So, Race to Win, The Missing Pieces. I mean, your bio is all about your racing history. You've been racing for over 35 years. I mean, this is your expertise. This is your life. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, what inspired me was when I began racing motorcycles, actually when I began racing road racing, I had already raced a lot of off-road venues and raced motocross and hare scrambles and all that good stuff, but those type of racing was easy to pick up. But when it came time to move up to road racing, you know, we're talking about 200-mile-per-hour motorcycles. They're quite a bit more dangerous. And the whole concept of beginning to race there is just it's just very daunting. And when you show up at the racetrack, you know, as a new racer, even though I knew so much about the other venues, I didn't know a lot about road racing, and you know, they pretty much just throw you in with the wolves. So it was pretty dangerous back then to get into road racing, and there was so much I didn't know that I made some bad decisions. I picked the wrong motorcycle to start racing. It was too big. There was just a whole lot I didn't know. I actually got hurt a couple of times before I figured out what I was doing wrong. So I sought out to write a book that shares all the other aspects of racing that you need to know. A lot of young riders show up to race, and they have some talent and some coordination, but they kind of think that that's all they need, that they're going to be world champions because they can ride a motorcycle fast, and it's a lot more complicated than that. So I wanted to share all the other factors that the other books don't teach you because all the other books just tell you how to go fast. So I wanted to make it safer and help young riders understand everything from their race club to how to be prepared to measuring, you know, their success so that they can improve every weekend.
Okay, fantastic, Alan. Now, I know some of you guys out there are probably thinking, well, I don't race. I don't get this. Why am I listening? Well, let me tell you why you're listening. Because anything in this life that you want to do, you really do need to learn the skill. And I love how you said that these young racers that you are consistently teaching, they have the talent and the coordination, but they are missing the other factors. So whether you race, guys, or whether you don't, check out these factors because these are the things that are going to make anything that you do really take it to go to the next level, should I say. To tell us about some of those other factors in racing?
Well, and real quick, just since you were hitting on a book being interesting, I kind of tested the book out with friends and family members first, and a lot of them read the book, and they're not even motorcycle racers, and they came back and said, wow, I made me want to go out and buy a motorcycle and start racing. So the book is very interesting. Don't race. I'm sorry, what was the question again? I got off base there a little bit.
No worries. We'll get right on track. So the question is, what are the factors? Because you mentioned about the young racers and, you know, they come to, do you call it a track in racing? Is that what it is?
Do I what?
Is it called a track in racing?
Well, we're a race club, but yes, we go to a race track. And what I did as a race club owner and promoter was I would rent a racetrack for the weekend to put on the racing events. And then, of course, I had to hire a lot of safety people and corner workers, grid marshals, administrative people. It takes quite a few people to run a safe race day. But, yeah, we actually rented a track and then put on these events. And one of the things I did was I started building on what they call track days. And that's, once a month we'd have a weekend where guys could come out and learn to ride without getting thrown on the racetrack in a race. And, let them get started at their own speed.
Great. So let me understand that you had this ultimate vision to really enhance racers in your area, and you just took it by the hands and you said, let me go to the racetrack and organize this team around it and make sure that it happens so that more people can race and do it safely.
Yeah, and actually anybody could come out with their friends or their race team and race. We, of course, very carefully inspect the motorcycles and make sure that they're safe for the racetrack and safe for the riders. And then we have a riders meeting every weekend to kind of, fill everybody in on track conditions and what they need to know about racing on that day, whether the weather's affecting it or track surface or high winds or whatever. So, there was quite a bit to that as well. But, putting this together was quite a task. But one of the things I took a lot of pride in was I raised the bar on safety. I had been to races before where other race clubs would tell me if I didn't like the race conditions, I could leave. I would spot something, like a cement wall that was too close to one of the turns, and I'd say, that's pretty dangerous. Shouldn't you guys do something about moving that or something? And of course they'd say, if you don't like it, you don't have to race. You can go home. And one race weekend, another race club told me that, and a guy was killed there. He ran off the track right there, lost control, hit that cement wall, and it killed him instantly. So I set out to make racing safer. I did some work with John Ulrich at Road Racing World. He's the editor of Road Racing World magazine. He has what's called the Air Fence Fund, where he helps racetracks get funding for this, what they call air fence. It's like big giant air pillows that you put along stuff like that cement wall so that if riders go off and hit it, they don't get killed, and most of the time they don't even get hurt. So I sought to raise the bar because by the time I had the race club, I was now an older racer, and a lot of the guys I was racing against were the kids of the guys I used to race with. So, it's one big happy family. It's a reunion every time we go to the racetrack, and, that meant I had to see to it that I could keep those families and their kids safe as I possibly could. And luckily I did a good job of that and actually was noted for that in magazine articles and a lot of other types of media. So it was a blessing.
Absolutely, a blessing indeed. I mean, it's fantastic that you are able to raise the standard on safety and just, enable families to come together and have, because I would think that racing is somewhat of, I guess, a dangerous sport, and if you don't take the proper precaution, then, you can have casualties, like you just mentioned. So again, I want to go back to the young racers you were talking about that come with the talent and the coordination, and that's all that they need in order to become a successful racer. So what are the missing pieces? What are the missing links, these other factors, as you put it, that create a really awesome rock star racer?
Well, in just reviewing a little bit about what my chapters are in the book, my first chapter is called What to Expect, and it basically acclimates the young rider to know what he's going to need to know when he gets to the racetrack, what he can expect to see, what the racing school is going to be like, and all of those kind of things. And then I have a Getting Started chapter, which helps riders understand what kind of bike they need to get, how to get it, how to prepare, and just generally know how to get ready for a race weekend. And then I have a chapter on the race club, and that's important because you need to know what the intentions of the race club are and how you can support your race club to make the venues safer and pitch in where you need to, because it takes an effort by everyone to make racing safe. So I wanted to make sure and put something in there about the race club. But there's chapters on race preparation, safety equipment, how to find sponsorship. My distractions theory is a really great chapter because it's a way to measure your efforts and to be able to put a point value on the things that need improvement, so that in between the races you can work on that and improve the next time that you come out. In the book, I also have chapters on where to find practice, on your racing skills, how to race as a team, how the weather will affect it, and of course diet and strength training and just a whole lot of other chapters as well. It's pretty complete. I spent way too long writing that book, but I wanted it to be complete.
Well, your efforts are surely worth it, because out there, the racers and all the other people that are not racers that just want to take a look inside a world that they're maybe not a part of are going to learn so much and gather so much information that they can bring on into their own lives. So let's talk about your distractions theory. What exactly is the distractions theory? About it measuring things.
Well, what you do, and one of the things that I found out early on is that you have to write things down, and you have to keep a log of things that happen when you're at the racetrack, so that they stay, they're fresh in your mind, so that you can improve upon them. So I actually developed a sheet for tracking the distractions, and a lot of other sheets that are available on my website at racetowinbook.com. And racers can download them, and they help you track every different kind of thing that you do at the racetrack. But they want to read the book, because they won't know how to use this one without it. But with the distractions sheet, you literally you go out on the racetrack, and let's say your upper body's a little bit weak, and after several laps you started maybe getting a little bit shaky. Well, when you come back to your pits, you pull out a sheet, you make a note of it, and you give it a ranking, of 1 through 10, 10 being a huge distraction. So maybe it's a 5 or a 6. So you write that down and you store it away, and then other things like maybe adjustments on your bike, how you feel because you didn't eat the right things. There's just a lot of things that can fall under distractions. Literally everything can be a distraction. And when you lower those point values by working on those in between the race weekends, the closer you get to 0, the more harmonious your race program begins to get. It's a whole lot easier. Things work out a lot better. So it's really a great way to measure your distractions and be able to go home and say, this is what I need to work on.
Wow, fantastic. So you also have a lot about health and fitness here. You've got about 30% health and fitness and diet content that is very comprehensive. Why did you feel the need to go so in depth on these subjects?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was racing, I wanted to be the best racer I could be. And again, I was one of those guys who went to the racetrack, and I had talent, but I wanted to make sure that I was fit enough to get the job done. And, we raced on hot days and, in summer when it might be 100 degrees and 90% humidity, and we're wearing a thick leather suit and a helmet and boots and gloves that overlap the legs and arms of the leather. So you've got to get where you can handle the heat well, but also be in shape. And, training, of course, is what will get you there. So I became a nutritionist and a personal trainer just to improve my own program. I wanted to know all I could about it. So I became a nutritionist and a personal trainer just so I could quantify these things and be the best I could at them, because so many things play a role. A good example in the heat was at the racetrack, I would see these guys that would, before they go out racing, you'd see them throwing up their lunch. And, I had young guys when I was in my 40s racing. These young guys would come over and say, Alan, we never see you throwing up your lunch. You never get sick. And I said, that's because I know what to eat on hot races for my energy level and to keep my stomach calm. So there's really a science to it. Even what you drink, because people think, I need electrolytes, so I'll just drink Gatorade. Well, Gatorade's got a lot of sugar in it unless you drink the low sugar G2 model, and basically I tell them in there that you need to drink this many waters to every Gatorade so you don't get too much sugar, because sugar also upsets your body's chemistry. So I've got very comprehensive information in there. One of the chapters is on working out for strength, and the other one is training to lose weight, because a lot of guys would need to lose a few pounds but just don't know how to do it. So that losing weight training, one, is good to help people, to help racers lose those few extra pounds. And then the guys that are maybe thinner and need a little more strength, they can work off of the strength training chapter. And then there's racer diet chapter and a racetrack diet chapter, which tells them what they need to eat for the race weekend and what they need to drink. So it's very complete information.
Wow, fantastic. So the book, again, is Race to Win, The Missing Pieces by Alan Blair. Alan, tell us, when did you first get on a bike? When was that? How old were you?
I was 5 years old.
5 years old? Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I tell you what is an interesting lesson from that is that I saw a motorcycle and I was excited about it. I just knew they were for me. And my mother, of course, being protective, said, "Oh no, you're not going to have one of those as long as I have anything to say about it." Luckily for me, it was more important to her that I was happy than her being protective over me. So she allowed me to get a little mini bike and start riding and everything. And what I found, what was important about that was I was brought up the right way of how to ride, and I started on small bikes and worked my way up. And I've seen a lot of instances when I was in the military, for instance, where parents didn't allow their kids to have motorcycles while they were living at home. So when they got older and moved away from home in the service, they went right down to the motorcycle shop and bought the biggest, fastest motorcycle they could get, and a week later they were either dead or crippled. Right. Because, when you're young, you start out smaller and you work your way up. But, when now you're an adult and you've never had a bike, you want to go down and get the biggest, fastest bike that you can. And a lot of been hurt and killed because of that. So I urge parents to consider letting their kids ride motorcycles. Just make sure that they learn the right way and go to the right training for learning how to ride. All of that's included in the book, by the way. So I just felt that's really important to share with the parents out there who think it's too dangerous to let their kids do, because if their kids want to do it, they're going to.
Absolutely. That's such a great lesson in parenting, and I think that at the end of the day, sometimes you value what you didn't have growing up, and then it can get you in trouble, going to get bigger, faster bikes that maybe you're just not ready for. So congratulations to your mom and just, the blessings that you have to have been able to ride at such a young age.
Yeah, it was great.
So can you share with us maybe one of your how do I want to put it, like one of the scary stories? Like, what's one of the things that just frightened you that happened as far as like an accident or an injury that you thought, maybe should I keep doing this? Is this for me? Or did you have to take a break? Like, what was one of those times?
Well, like I said, it's imperative that you have good training when you start out riding a motorcycle. And luckily, by the time I was able to start riding on the street, I was very well trained, so I didn't have too much difficulty. But when I started road racing, like I mentioned before, there wasn't a lot of help out there. So, there were things I didn't know, and I made some poor decisions, and I had some accidents on the racetrack that were a little bit scary. At one point, I had a pretty bad accident. I missed quite a bit of work after that and had some surgeries. And luckily, I love motorcycle racing so much, I came back to racing again. But you just have to start slow. And in racing, you've got to get all the education you can get first. I remember one example of a guy who was coming to our track day events when I owned the race club. And this guy came every weekend at a track event. He would come out, he'd ride his bike out there and everything. And I thought he was going to become a racer. And then, after I'd saw him month after month there and he didn't become a racer, I thought, well, maybe this guy's just scared of it and that's not what he wants to do. So if he just wants to do track days, okay. But what he was doing was he was learning at his own pace. He was building his confidence. And eventually he showed up at a race and he started winning right away. And he was doing it safely. He wasn't out of control as a rider, or what we call riding over his head. He came out there, he did it right, and he started winning races right away. So that's the great thing about the right way is you learn at your own pace and you don't get in a hurry and you do it right. And then racing's not all that dangerous for you. As a race club owner for the years that I had a race club, there was never a fatality in my race club. And that's for several reasons, but one, I was very safety conscious as a club owner and made sure that if any issues came up, from the riders, I wanted to make sure that I addressed them, and I always did. I actually lost a huge deposit on a racetrack once because the riders felt like it wasn't safe enough for us to race there, so I canceled it and I lost that deposit. But, it's better to lose that deposit than it is to lose one of my riders. So I was pretty proud that I managed not to ever have a fatality in my race club.
Absolutely. Good for you. Good for you. That is a wonderful thing that you did there. I love what you said, that to learn at your own pace, don't do it in a hurry, do it right. And that's basically like racing, the keys to winning anything. Learn at your own pace, don't do it in a hurry, and do it right.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, with the injury that you did face, I'm sure that you needed to get a doctor and get sufficient health care. And I noticed that there is a chapter on choosing a doctor that is best supporting for the health and the fitness of the racer. Can you talk a bit more about why that is so important?
Well, because there are so many factors that can come into play when you've been injured. How fast you recover, whether or not you're on medication, because you certainly don't ever want to get on on the racetrack while you're taking a medication that might have influence on how you feel when you're on the racetrack. And in the chapter, I go into it at length about how to choose a doctor, and I prefer natural doctors. And it's really a very good chapter. I've had a lot of friends call me and say, "Wow, how did you know all of this?" Well, I used to work hand in hand with a doctor that I knew, and because I at the time trained doctors in how to use laser therapy. So I got very knowledgeable about natural nutrition and natural health care, and it worked very well for me. So I'm excited to share that. And truth be known, a lot of the professional racers before a race, they'll go to their chiropractor and they'll get a chiropractic adjustment, so that they're aligned well and feeling good. And there's just a whole lot of great information in there, and it all makes sense when you read the whole chapter and put it all together.
Fantastic. Wow, this is just a book filled with content that is really going to turn around the lives of racers and just really make them quite amazing. So what is your ultimate purpose with this book? What is that one thing that you want young racers to know with this book?
That I want them to do it right and do it safely, and I wanted to support the sport. I love the sport. I love motorcycling. I've been doing it all my life. There's a way to do everything safely and the smart way, and that's really just what I wanted to do. I'm pretty warmed when I go out to do a book signing, and some racers show up and say, "Hey, I read your book. It helped me. I lost 30 pounds. I took a couple of seconds off my lap time." One guy I know has moved to the pro circuit since reading my book and gave me credit for that. I saw him on Facebook, and I didn't at the time remember who he was, from a personal perspective, but I saw him on there talking about it, and he's a pro rider, and he was saying, every young rider needs this book. And I was just at Daytona International Speedway this weekend. They had some motorcycle races out there, and I went out there and sold books, and I really do quite good out there with the book. But it really makes me feel good when racers approach me and tell me that my book helped them, because that was the whole point of it. I wanted to help young riders do it better, so they would have fun and it would be safe, and that they could have that future in racing that they wanted to. I will, to go back a little bit further on that, there were guys back when I started racing, which was one of the reasons I wanted to write this book. There were guys that would come out and wouldn't know the ropes of racing, and it's pretty much sensory overload when you show out their motorcycle on a road course and you haven't done it before. And they go out the first weekend and not be well prepared or don't know enough about it, and they'd crash their motorcycle and get hurt and never come back. And it's really, really a fun sport, if you approach it correctly. So I think my book has done well from that perspective. I teach riders the right way to get started. I talk about riding and racing schools and, how to choose the right motorcycle. And it's pretty much an A to Z book in how to do it safely and keep motorcycling in your life, because it's a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely. Wow, you're doing great things for the young riders out there, and I am honored to speak with you, because one day I hope to get on a bike and maybe put your book to use. Who knows? You got to try things once, right?
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
If you start out right and you get a good education in it, if you will, then it can be so much fun. You just have to learn the right way, and always be safe and wear safety equipment. There's too many people out there that don't wear helmets, and unfortunately they don't figure it out until it's too late. And I've had guys tell me, well, it's my right not to wear a helmet, but, your head's very fragile. And the first time you fall off a motorcycle going 10 miles an hour and your head hits the pavement too hard, you're done, So it's really a sport that you just have to approach from a smart perspective and always try to stay safe and wear good safety equipment and, ride with people that are safe. And, like I said, starting out getting the right education, everyone when they start riding should go through a motorcycle safety foundation course because they are, a course that teaches you all the basics of how to ride, and they do it very well.
Oh, fantastic, Alan. Yes, it is definitely on my bucket list, and I hope to one day meet you so that we can actually go for that ride and I can get trained the right way, do it safely, and just win on that track. So the book is Race to Win, The Missing Pieces. You have been listening to Alan Blair. He's been sharing with you all of his wisdom in his almost of experience on the motorcycle track and the race car track. So you can get the book at Amazon.com and at BarnesandNobles.com. It's called Race to Win. The website is racetowinbook.com, and you can also reach him on Facebook at facebook.com/Race to Win. Alan,
and they can also go to the website and email me through the website if you have questions about the book. And like I said, there's some great material to download there that will help them with their racing program as well.
Okay, fantastic. Alan, thank you so much. You've heard it here first. Race to Win, The Missing Pieces. It's been a pleasure. See you guys next time.
Thanks, Jeselle.
Thank you.